Okay, let's go ahead and get into it here. So first, let's open up the fire path spline that we had before. And to start with, we're gonna need to create a new timeline here because we want it to go in sequence with the fires, but we don't want it to start at the exact same time as the fires do. Because if the fire starts up, we don't want it to immediately create a collision sphere and then potentially tick on the person before the fire has really even like been created. So we want the fires to be delayed very slightly. We could set up in addition to this and try to delay it a little bit. Um, but that can cause some weird issues. So instead, let's go ahead and I'm just going to copy this. And let's name it collision spawning. And then we want it to be the same time as this, so we'll do 70, 70, so we're good there. Close. Now, let's go ahead and get some of this set up, so we'll do start collisions. That's a custom event, start collisions, do there, and then another one for stopping them. Stop collisions. And then we'll set up another delay. It is going to be, we want to use the same delay as the fires preferably, so that the collisions spawn in the same sequence. Let's do... Let's go ahead and let's pull this one down here. So we got the previous points array we made before. I'm gonna go to this. Get. And then we're always gonna be pulling 0. So we'll get 0, which is the first point in the array. The reason we always want the first point is after we get the point, we're actually going to remove it. So we're going to delete the point from the array. And then we can go ahead and do add sphere collision. Pull this out. And this vector we're going to put into here. So this is going to control where the sphere collisions spawn. And it should spawn in the same location as the fire itself. Now, because these are spheres, we want them to cover the area of the fire, but we want them to be not necessarily as high up. I mean, this kind of depends on how you want them to collide. They're in the same position as the fire. So let's add a little bit of height to this since these are spawning at floor level. I don't know why. Let's do this. There we go. Since these are spawning at floor level, we actually want them to spawn a little bit higher. So let's say 50, or that's a little high, maybe 40. Plug that in there. And then for the scale, you can set the scale up to a instance editable if you want. I'm going to go ahead and just control these manually. So I want it to be about half the height that it would normally be. So we should be creating kind of some oblong spheres here. Now I believe the base size for sphere collisions is 32 in all directions. So these are probably going to be a little bit small. We're going to have to adjust them a bit. But let's just get this done first, and then we'll go from there. Okay, and then we're going to take the previous points array again. And after the sphere's been made, we're going to want to remove index. And we're just going to remove 0. Then I think we can leave everything else default. And then we're going to need to make a new array. So this is Niagara particles. We don't want that. We want collision. So let's go ahead and just pull off this. We'll promote it. And then I'm going to delete it. Should be this one. Yeah. So this is sphere collision type. I'm going to set that to array. And I'm going to name this the collisions array. Compile real quick. Now we're going to pull this off. We'll do an add. And then we're just going to, oh, let's just connect it directly for now. If you want to, you can reroute this above or below. It's not that far of a distance, so it doesn't really bother me. I'm actually going to put it below. Put that up. Okay. So next, should be creating our collisions. Okay. And then, let's see. We hit the same point twice. We wanted to stop the fires. Same thing for this. If the collision spawns in the same place, in exactly the same place, we want it to stop as well. So what we can actually do, well, let's go ahead and let that run for now. That should create collisions. They should be visible. They should be sized up. Oh yeah, we need to start them. So let's say start fire. We can actually run it off this probably. We can do a sequence. We'll just sequence it. First one will start the fire timeline. And then the second one, let's have it delay. And then we'll make the delay half a second. Well, no, because the delay between fires is interchangeable. Let's do, since the delay between fires is instance editable, we want to make sure that we don't accidentally go over the 0.5 or that could mess up our collisions. So let's delay between fires. You know what? Let's go ahead and just plug it directly in. That should work fine. Yeah, okay. And then we'll start collisions. Okay, let's go ahead and see how this works. Do I need to make it so that you can see them? I can't remember. They should be visible default, I believe, but they might not be. Okay. I think it's this one, manual attachment. Let's go ahead and add a set hidden right here. Set it to negative. That's probably what it is. They probably come default hidden. Because they should have visibility set to yes, but I believe they've in-game they're set to hidden. So we'll try that. There they are. Okay. Let's see. They're going a little faster than the fire. Technically the fire is going first, I believe, but because the particles take a second to actually start. Yeah. Okay. Not too bad there. That also shows you how many particle effects we're doing, because these should be the locations of each particle effect. So that means that for this small path, we're using quite a few, and we probably don't need to. So I can probably trim that down a bit. Okay, so that worked. Also, the size was too small. So we'll do this. Let's go ahead and increase the size of them by 2. Actually, let's do 2.5. So XY 2.5, we're going to leave this at 1 for the oblong shape. We'll do 1.5. And then these are spawning a little bit too close together. So let's go back to here. I got too many windows open. Okay. So down here we got fire distance, delay between fires. So 50 seems a bit small. Let's put it to 150. Go ahead and save. Okay, yeah, so there's our distance between the fires. They do look bigger when they're that close together, but they don't necessarily need to be. The asset I'm using is much more visible at eye level, not great from above, but let's see. Yeah. Okay. So next, as you can see, that's about right. I believe I could jump, yeah, so you could jump over those if you wanted to, which is what I was aiming for. If there's certain areas that you want them to be jumped over, you can do that. You don't have to do that. If you want to avoid that, you can simply make the circles bigger or put them up higher so that they can't be jumped over, but you still won't avoid them if you run into it. Now there are some gaps here, and the circles are still a little bit smaller than the assumed fire shape. So we can go ahead and increase that a little bit more as well. Okay, let's go ahead. Additionally, that was a little too, I feel like they're still spawning in a little bit too quickly. So we'll add the delay between fires, and then we'll add, let's do 1 second. So whatever the delay between fires is, and then an additional second before it starts collisions. That should give the fire a little bit more time to actually speed up. And probably because this is a sphere collision, I notice it's not really going oblong. It seems to just be going off whatever the largest number is. Try that. It might be the smallest number. You could also do the same thing with box collisions if you prefer that. Yeah, so it's going off the smallest number. So that's a little bit better. They still were a little fast though. Or maybe I should say it takes the fire longer than it should to actually start. It's a little bit better though. It gave the fire a little bit more time before it got into the groove. Okay, so now we have collisions. About the right size as the fire. You could probably make them just a little bit smaller. They're overlapping a little bit, which isn't a big issue. Okay. Now what we're going to do is, let's say you want to create the fire, and then you want it all to go away. For instance, if you do like a level reset or something like that, if you reopen the level, it would reset the actor. But if the character dies and instead of like reopening the entire level, you just decide to like teleport them back to their spawn area or something like that, you might want the fire to reset as well. So what we can do here is we're going to set it up so that if it stops this way, then the fire continues to stay active. And if it hits the point like this, or if it hits the point like this, it'll continue to stay active. But then we'll have a secondary way to stop the fires as well. So I'm going to set this up to go off of just a basic event actor begins overlap. So we'll do here overlap. We're going to change some of this later, but this will be good for testing it immediately. So we'll do this. And then what we're going to do is on event begin overlap, if it is the player character that overlaps with it, we are going to make two custom events here. And these are going to be to stop the fire. We're going to stop the fire. We're going to delete the fires and the collisions. So let's do event. Later, what we'll change this to is when the player overlaps it, they take damage. And we'll be doing some of that through interfaces and a function on the player. But for this one, just to get it set up quickly, we're just going to stick with this. Let's do remove fires, set it here, and then we'll do remove right, add custom event, and then remove collisions. So we already have stop fires set here. And we want to make sure that the fires do in fact get stopped, because this is separate. This is separate from this, and we want to make sure that it does in fact trigger. We could just connect this directly into here on like a sequence, but what we can also do is just run a line. So we'll do remove fires. We can just call the stop fires event like that. And then what we need to do is, because there's this delay between, we need to make sure that we pull this out to make sure that it's actually removing everything, because if you don't, then one could potentially get spawned after you stop, because that's how delays work. So let's pull this here. Delay again. And then we're going to pull off the array that we collected of all the fires. We're going to loop through the array. And we're going to destroy all the components. And then when this is completed, we're going to clear the array so that it'll be empty again. Okay, I'm going to take this. You could potentially turn this into a function if you want to save on space. So you could do fires. Yeah. I believe you can just do this. Collapse to a function. Nah, no, it failed. Probably the custom event itself, or it's the delay. Yeah, that's right. Functions can't have delays inside them. So I guess you could collapse this if you wanted to, just to try and keep it out of your main event graph. But it's kind of small. I'd probably just keep it close to this. And then we're going to basically do the same thing we did here, just right here. So if the, well, let's go ahead and put this here too. So we'll do, this is calling the remove fires event. There it is. Fires. And then since we're removing the fires, we can actually call the remove collisions event off of this one. You can either put it here or you can put it here. Yeah, let's go ahead and put it here. So we'll remove both at the same time. It's a little cleaner. Okay, and then we'll do, we want to do stop collisions first, same as we did before. So that it actually stops creating them. We've got the same delay, so we can just copy this exactly. We're going to do another loop. This time though, we're going to loop off the collisions array. And then we're going to destroy these components as well. And then same thing, we will then clear the array. And this is only if you're going to be reusing it. If you're once it's created, if you just want it to stay in existence, you don't technically have to set this up. This is purely for things like basic level resets or something like that. Let's see which one. Destroy component. Oh, forgot to connect it. There we go. Okay. So now, if we overlap the fires at any point, they should delete themselves. Set that up, and I'll run into it. Okay, everything got deleted, so that worked perfectly. Okay, now we don't actually want the fires to be deleted whenever you run across them, so I'm going to disconnect that. Because what we're actually going to do is we'll set up a interact, so if the fire begins to overlap our character, instead we're going to use interfaces to trigger a function with the character that then creates a damage over time effect You could also have the damage be instantaneous and not do damage over time. That kind of ends up being up to you. We're going to be using interfaces though, because assuming you want the fire to affect both the player and then you also want it to affect other creatures, you would want to use an interface for that because you'd want it to activate anytime it overlaps something and not just the player character. Okay, well, I think that's all we're going to do for this video. We'll work on the other stuff next time. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good day and see you next time.